Usually when I post cycling videos on this channel, it's me doing cross-country mountain biking, like the footage you can see on screen here, but I also do a lot of urban cycling as well, chiefly because I commute to work on my bike. And I watch a lot of cycling content on YouTube, and recently I saw a couple of great videos by YouTubers Not Just Bikes and Shifter. They did a collaborative video in which they compared cycling through two cities, one Calgary in America and one Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and they played the +1 -2 game. And in this game, what you do is every time you run into a piece of bike infrastructure that's good and friendly for bicycles, you give 1 point. And if you run into anything that's kind of negative towards cyclists, then you take off 2 points. And it's kind of like, how many points do you end up with? The idea being that a city with good bike infrastructure will end up with a positive score on a typical commute, and a city with poor infrastructure will end up with a negative score on a commute. And the example ride that they did in their collaboration was starting off in a city centre environment and cycling to an out-of-city hardware store. So I thought I'd do the same thing and see how my city, Plymouth UK, stacked up against Amsterdam and Calgary. I'm not expecting it to be better than Amsterdam, but I'm hoping that it will be able to at least come tied with America, but we'll have to see, I guess. Anyway, as you can see, I am now setting off on my journey to B&Q, which is a pretty ubiquitous hardware store in the United Kingdom. It's probably the biggest chain. Don't know why this is relevant, really. It was a very busy day in the city, so I didn't start all the way in the city centre because it was just very crowded and I didn't want to step on anyone's toes, really. So I started just outside of the city centre, and already Plymouth gets a point. This is really good. This is a major city roundabout, but as you can see, there's a really well-lit, pedestrianised space underneath. It's a little bit crowded and it's difficult to avoid pedestrians, but I also respect that it is an area with a lot of foot traffic, and I'm happy to go slowly for places like this. And this bit's really great. Look, the off-traffic route continues all the way to here, and then it just sort of ends, and I have to awkwardly now rejoin the road, and it's really difficult, especially if there's a lot of cars. So -2 here, but then another point is gained. Look, this is a one-way street that cars can't enter, but there's a little side entrance for cyclists to squeeze in, so that's a good bit of infrastructure there. So yeah, the housing near the city centre is super narrow, like the streets are narrow, but there's quite light traffic overall, so I'm not going to dock any points for there not being a cycle lane, and I'm going to give a point here. Look, a shared path, so I can avoid this main road, which is really, really good, until once again it just sort of ends. Now I could go down the main route, that would be the most direct way, but it's quite a busy road in comparison to these side streets here, and there's some traffic lights ahead that you might be able to see if you really squinted and paused the video, that don't change unless a car is waiting at the lights, and there were no cars behind me at that moment, so I'd have just had to wait until a car arrived for the lights to change, or you know, just run the red, which is illegal. So ultimately I didn't mind coming the quieter way. In fact, I prefer coming these quieter roads and bypassing that major sort of traffic light area, so I'm not going to change the score because I probably wouldn't have used that road anyway, but it's something that, you know, I just want to point out because it is a problem. These like smart traffic lights don't seem to activate for cyclists. There's not much to talk about at this moment. It's just me cycling along again. I guess it would be nice to have some sort of cycle lane here, but really I just don't know how we could do that because the houses are so close to the road. The road is quite narrow. It's only wide enough for one car as it is, and there's no other place that residents can park their cars, I guess. So I don't really mind. Like I say, they're fairly light traffic, these roads, and you know, cars don't travel all that fast because, you know, the roads are so narrow they can't get up to any kind of speed that would be dangerous or would inhibit their reaction times. You would hope, at least. And now I'm entering a park that has paths that go places that are actually useful, so I'm going to give a point here. It's really crowded, but I'm going to let that slide because when I filmed this there was a football match going on, and the football stadium for Plymouth is in this park, so it was just an exceptionally busy day. One thing I will say is that this path is, you know, it could be a bit better. It's a bit rough around the edges. It's covered in leaves, but it's only just autumn's only just hit, so I would be a little bit entitled to expect there to be no leaves on the path in a park. And here we enter a separated cycle lane alongside this busy road that's also uphill, which is it's quite difficult to go at any sort of good speed on this sort of road. So it's great that there's this separated cycle lane, bad that it's covered in leaves and there's loads of stuff underneath the leaves. And here I'm going to dock some points here because there's this weird sort of speed bump thing, and it's really hard. Like, I'm commuting on a hardtail with the suspension unlocked, and it does still buck you, that bump just there. I wouldn't want to do it on a road bike. And then look, it just sort of ends where right at the point where the road reaches its steepest level. It's kind of hard to tell how steep it is on the GoPro fisheye lens, but you can sort of get a sense of the actual slant based on the houses on the right. What would be nice here coming up to this traffic light is if these car parking spaces were instead replaced with a cycle lane, because I'm now stuck in traffic ahead by those lights that are red at the moment. There is a cycle box where cyclists can wait ahead of all the cars, but I'm docking points because there's no way for me to safely get to that cycle box because there are cars blocking me. So the only way you can safely get to that cycle box is if there's no cars ahead of you before you get to the light, which is very unlikely because it's a hill. You're going to be going slowly. Oh, there's that cycle box. Would have been nice if I could have used it, but whatever, Usually with those cycle boxes, there is a cycle lane, like this one I am now in, which feeds you to the front of the traffic so you can wait in that cycle box. It's really weird that there was one there, but there was no way for cyclists to get to it. I am going to give a point for this cycle lane here. A painted cycle lane is the absolute bare minimum, and a lot of people are now starting to say that we should expect more from city councils and have an actual segregated cycle lane, but this is better than nothing. And as you can see, it hasn't just been painted into a lane that was only wide enough for cars initially. As you can see, cars can pass me easily, and I don't feel too in danger when they do pass me, so I'm going to give a point for this cycle lane. And it does continue all the way up this road, and as you can see, they've turned what used to be a dual carriageway, as in a road with two lanes, into a single carriageway, and they've put this nice cycle lane. And yes, it's not properly separated, there's no barrier, there is an absolutely massive gap, so I feel just as safe as I would if there was a proper barrier there. And by not having a barrier, it means that an ambulance or other emergency service vehicle can use it to get past, and as a cyclist, I'm more than happy to get out of the way for an ambulance or an emergency service vehicle. But did you see it? Yes, once again, it just sort of ends, and now I have to cross this lane of traffic, and I just have it can often take over like a minute or so, which on a commute can add a significant amount of time, and you'd like to think that cars would just let you cross, but they don't. So it would have been nice to have maybe some proper integration of the cycle lane rather than just awkwardly forcing bikes to cross this slipway. And then look, the cycle lane just ends right where the road gets really busy and really steep. And commuting on this road in the mornings, I commute on this road, it honestly does feel like I'm taking my life into my hands. And I'm giving 2 penalties for this, not only because the cycle lane just ends where the road gets really, really dangerous, but look to the left, there's this weird stone thing that could have quite easily been a cycle lane, but they decided to just make it not usable by pedestrians or bikes, and it's just this non-feature. And the thing behind that wall is just a big grassy verge, so the whole wall could have been shifted a bit further to the left to accommodate some space for a lane at that last little narrow bit. Whatever. Oh, here's a nice cycle lane, but then it just ends. So I don't think it's even deserving of a point, because what purpose does it serve? It's there for about 10 meters and then disappears again, forcing bikes once again onto a triple lane, very busy road. And yes, there is a shared cycle lane path on the left, but then it just sort of goes off to the left and it doesn't go where you want it to, and then it doesn't continue here. So I'm sort of stuck on this road. Now, granted, there is an alternate cycling route for this, where I'm going now, and I can show you that towards the end of the video just as the alternative, but it is so much longer, and it's so much more narrow and so much slower, and it's all shared with pedestrians, so it's not great. And here there's a cycle lane where I have to indicate out and cross any cars that are behind me trying to overtake into this cycle lane that once again then makes you stop and wait for the important vehicles. Luckily, there were none coming here, and cross this busy filter lane. And I should point out that one of the things the council has done to make this road safe is by making it 30 miles an hour. But the thing is, cars will not go 30 miles an hour because it's designed to go much faster. Like, all the entrances and exits are like high-speed slipways. It's really wide. There's loads of lanes. If you want cars to go slowly, then don't build roads that encourage cars to go faster. Now, I am going to give a point here, actually. You can see I'm in a nice painted cycle lane that only shares this part of the road with buses and taxis, so it's generally a slower lane and a lighter traffic lane. And if you're not that confident, there is a nice, big, wide off-road cycle lane that is, shared with pedestrians, but it's very clearly marked. It's much better markings than most. I choose not to use it because at every single junction on the left, you have to give way to cars at the entrances and exits of businesses, so it's much slower, and I don't really like sharing the same space with pedestrians because when it's very busy, which it often is when I'm commuting, sometimes pedestrians and dog walkers, things like that, they will still just use the cycle lane, so I don't think it's as good as using the on-road one, but I'm still going to give a point anyway because it is really good. And here we are arriving at the hardware store, and there looks like there is a dedicated bike entrance. You can see I can actually exit the road at this point here and enter the little retail park that is basically just the hardware store. And if you get there's a KFC and a M&S food, like a supermarket, grocery store for my viewers across the pond. And this has actually been quite a good little experiment, actually, because this is very close to my actual commute. I live not too far at all from where I started this video, and across the main road from B&Q is the hospital that I work at. So it's been quite insightful, this is very representative of what I do every single day. And I recorded this on a Saturday, so the traffic wasn't as bad as it is at, 8 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday. So that might give the illusion that it's not as bad as I might have been saying, making it out to be when I was doing this commentary. But yeah, it's that bit really where there's that stupid non-cycle lane, non-pavement, stony thing on the side of a very, very dangerous road for cyclists. So I'm quite frankly appalled that that's not been changed into an actual usable lane, especially because there were some roadworks there not too long ago where they could have just done that. Now the video is continuing because I wanted to point out a couple of other very bad things about how I commute home. So here I'm having to just sort of wait so I can join this road. I think the expectation here is that I cross the street here and then cross at those traffic lights there, but literally when you cross the road there's a crossing for pedestrians, but they can only change one side at a time. And when you cross one side, I hope this makes sense, when you cross to the central island from one side, it won't change to a green man until the next full cycle of traffic lights. So it can take absolutely ages, like a couple of minutes to cross one road. I need to cross this road in the morning, so that's what I have to do. The only alternative is I continue down the road past B&Q onto a major roundabout which has got very little cycling infrastructure. Once again, the assumption is that cyclists have to cross the road in stages to get towards the hospital. So there's a point docked there, and also I'm docking a point here because the cycle lane, it's a painted cycle lane anyway, which is not great, and then it just sort of disappears and you're suddenly having to merge in front of buses and taxis, which is not ideal. I don't know why the cycle lane couldn't have just continued, but whatever. So here I am coming down this hill, and this is a really bad spot actually, because once again, if we just wait for it, at the moment it's not too bad, it's a fairly low traffic lane compared to the rest of the road, but then look, I then have to give way, and this is at the bottom of a big hill, so I'll be going quite fast, and once again you just have to wait for either a car to allow you to cross or just find a gap and race through. And in rush hour, there are no gaps. You just have to wait until a car flashes to let you through. And this cycle lane is disgusting. There's litter, there's crap in it. It's not good. And then here is another incredibly dangerous segment here where I now have to... The cycle lane once again just ends, and I'm expected to merge into a fast-flowing lane of cars. Cars do 40 miles an hour down here. It's technically a 30-mile-an-hour road. Honestly, I can't blame cars for going faster because the road is not designed to be a 30-mile-an-hour road. All the entrances and exits are high-speed slipways, and it doesn't really look like a 30-mile-an-hour road. It's designed to accommodate faster speed. So if the council want people to go slower, then the road should be adapted to force cars into going slower. And then here, once again, there is no cycle lane when really there could have been a cycle lane. There's this weird pavement area to the left, which is not used by pedestrians because it doesn't go anywhere at either end. It just terminates. But it's usable by cyclists who could, who would be using the road, and then they can just enjoy some nice safety zone for a bit. Now, we're heading into some traffic here. What I'm going to do now, some people might be a bit confused about, because I think this is actually illegal in some countries, but it's not illegal in the United Kingdom, and that's this lane splitting thing, where if the traffic's moving very slowly, and if there is sufficient space for you to safely do it, motorbikes and cyclists and moped drivers, you're allowed to go between the lanes like that. So it's not an illegal thing, it is in the highway code. I don't think it's legal everywhere though, so in case anyone was confused about that, it's okay in England if you're sensible about it. And then once again, there's no cycle lane here, so I have to merge into a very busy lane of cars. And then up ahead I can see the cycle lane appearing, so I'm going to join it, and then I have to remove my left hand from my handlebar because there's this bush that just infiltrates half the cycle lane. Many times when it's dark and I go fast, I've been scratched really badly by that thorn bush, so Don't know why that's even there, to be honest. Anyway, we're at -25. I know it's a bit unfair because this has been a bit of a longer journey than the journeys taken by Shifter and not just bikes, because I did a bit of the journey back as well, so I'm going to leave it there. But I thought I'd just showcase some other really bad examples of bike infrastructure that the city has implemented poorly. Speaking of bike infrastructure that's not been very well implemented, I said earlier that there is an alternate way of doing that horrifically dangerous bad road, and this is it. So remember, this is just before that flyover, which is obviously just before that really bad bit. Here now, we're going to turn left down this bit, and it's not too bad. It's a painted cycle lane, so but it is, it's something. But then it just sort of ends, and it forces you onto this path, which is technically a shared path. But it's so narrow that you can't, pedestrians would have to be walking single file for you to safely pass them. And even then, it's very, I wouldn't feel safe passing someone on a mobility scooter or in a wheelchair or pushing a pram. And then we've got this painted line here to remind you that, yes, it's definitely okay. But once again, it's a really dirty, not swept path. It's really narrow. And then we've got this horrific murder tunnel that I'm sure muggers would absolutely love. It's always, usually these tunnels are filled with glass, rubbish, things like that. And then we get to this bridge in which, cyclists must now get off and walk their bike. Can you imagine us designing roads like this? Drivers have to get out of their car and walk for 100 meters or so. So this is kind of annoying, and one of the reasons why I don't go this way, because, they can say, oh, well, there's a safer cycling route, but then a lot of this cycling route you're not actually allowed to cycle on. And then once again, it's a tunnel that's filled with glass and litter, and it's got blind entrances and exits, so you have to go really slowly and ring your bell frantically in the hopes that there's not anyone coming the other way. And then the cycle lane, once again, just sort of ends. And here you can see, as I sort of round this corner, that I'm now running parallel to that really bad bit where the cycle lane ended on that busy uphill. And I'm instead on a hill that, is lighter traffic, but it's so much steeper. It's so much steeper, it's so much higher. You can see all that, but judging by that wall on the right, just how much higher and steeper this hill is. And remember when I said that there's a bit of space on the road, but not that much space for a cycle lane? But look where the wall is. There's this whole grassy verge. So either this road that I'm on here could have been widened to accommodate a cycle lane, or the space that is allocated to that green belt thing could have been shrunk down to allow a third lane on the main road for cyclists. So yeah, I appreciate it was built in the 60s where times were a bit different in terms of cycling, but it would be nice for something to be done retroactively, hopefully. And here now I'm using the shared path, which is once again not great because it's a shared path and it's very narrow, and there's just loads of debris. There was a sign left by road workers in the pedestrian bit. So pedestrians often will use the cycling bit, and it's very faded and it's not always that clear which side is for which person. And then I have to cross here, and as you can see, these lights only change each side of the road, so you might potentially have to wait for a green man on one side, then stop in the middle and wait for a green man on the other side. And there's lots of people crossing that road, then that you can get quite squished in the middle. And then it's once again a really, really narrow shared path that is technically a shared path because look, they've painted a line on it, but in reality it's very, very narrow. And in fact, coming up you'll see there's a couple with a pram, and I had no choice but to just wait behind them. I know I could have rung the bell and I'm sure they would have moved out of the way, but I'm happy to just go a little bit slower. And really, this is not look how narrow it is. It's barely wide enough for me to cycle down without anyone else coming the other way. And then cycle lane just sort of ends again, and I'm back onto the road. It was a very quiet road, so I don't really mind. And then look, we have some signposts just for cyclists, which is nice. And this is like the subway system that's in this part of the town called Crown Hill. So yeah, it's very faded. It really could do with a fresh coat of paint. And as you can see coming up, it's just very windy. Now, a lot of it is closed off at the moment. I'll forgive them for that because there are works going on. And, oftentimes car roads will have one lane shut off and they have to kind of go one in, one out when there's road work. So because some of it was closed for works, I don't really mind. But then look, it's once again really, really narrow, and they once again have to sit here and just wait for all the important vehicles to go, and they never indicate when they're coming off from this side of the roundabouts. Who knows? And then you'd like to think that one of these cars, because they're having to slow down to a stop to wait at the roundabout anyway, they might just sort of wave me across, but none of them did, so I had to wait for a big gap to race across. And then it's a really narrow pavement. By the way, in the UK we call sidewalks pavements. I feel like I should have said that earlier, but whatever. And it's just really narrow, it's really lumpy, it's really bumpy, and coming up at a second, like, look, it's a blind corner, so you can't go very fast at all because someone might be coming the other way, and it's really narrow here. And then we get to that good bit that you all probably remember me cycling alongside earlier. But do you remember, like, the first way that I showed you for the main bit of this video was a very direct and very fast route. Admittedly quite a dangerous one for cyclists, but it's very direct. The one we just did was very windy, very narrow, wasn't safe for cyclists really, and it wasn't really safe for pedestrians and everyone else using those paths either. So I feel like it's just better for me to use the main road. And it's not like Plymouth City Council don't want you to use that main road, because they went to all the effort of making mini cycle lanes that just terminate every now and then. And it's a good thing I'm on the off-road cycle lane at this point, because there's a car blocking the bike lane, and the car's only waiting for the McDonald's drive-through, so I don't really know how they've managed to save any time at all by just parking their car along the cycle lane. It's going to fade across to another alternate route. So there's an alternate route for that dangerous bit that we've just covered. There's also an alternate route to that other really dangerous bit on that same road where we can turn off left here. Again, cycle lane just ends. At least there's a big downhill just before it, so you can go quite fast on this bit, so cars won't be too desperate to overtake you at silly points. And then you can enter an off-road sort of subway system. That's a very windy tunnel system. And here I'm on that shared path again. This is why I don't like them, because I'm ringing my bell and this guy is completely oblivious. He didn't move out of the cycle lane. I don't even know if he knew it was a cycle lane. It's just one of the reasons why I don't like the shared paths with the paint. And then here I am. There's a cycle lane, but then it just ends, and it ends to allow cars to just park. I don't know if we, should be dedicating public roads so that people can store privately owned items, but whatever. That's sucks. So I have to really sort of try and merge in a gap in the busy, fast-moving traffic, and then the cycle lane once again appears after we get past those parked cars. So yeah, to be clear, those cars aren't parked in the cycle lane. The cycle lane ends so that cars can park there on a major dual carriageway. So I don't think there really should be parked cars on a busy road like that, to be honest. Luckily, I'm turning left here, because if I wasn't, I'd have to go down that dual carriageway ahead, which, as you can see, has no cycle lane. But that's it. I know this is probably like a less positive video from this channel, but I thought it was quite fun doing the points game, and I think it's quite good to raise awareness of just how much more work needs to be done to Plymouth, UK, and indeed a lot of UK cities when it comes to accommodating cyclists. Anyway, just a light in the mood at the end. Here's a clip of me saying hello to my cat after I got home. Where's my son? Oh, there he is! Hello? I reckon you could just like pretend that you love me in any of these videos in which you feature. He looks deeply uncomfortable, doesn't he? Fine. Go and live your best life. I should also mention that the videos by Shifter and Not Just Bikes were really good, so you should check those out. They're on screen. I'll put that there. Thank you for watching, everyone. Bye!